All right. Thanks for that intro. Sorry it took me so long to get on after. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super stoked just to chat, talk. I want to make sure that this is kind of like more of a conversation. Um, and I can run you guys through who I am and kind of what I've done. Dakota did a great job of introing, and can, let's just get it started, right? All right, so yeah, I'm Bryce Wong, currently footwear designer at Nike SB and Nike All Conditions gear. I do most of the collaborations, and I do a lot of the skate shoes for our professional riders. But just like Dakota said, I do a lot of stuff on the side. I'm also I'm an artist, a graphic designer, and I just just try to do it all. So I'm super stoked to kind of be talking to you guys. If you had told me 4 years ago when I was in college that I'd have to talk to a ton of students, I think I would. I don't know. I would be pretty freaked out. I did terribly in my public speaking classes, but here I am. So yeah, like I said, graduated 4 years ago from the University of Cincinnati, and I studied industrial design there. I was also as part of the School of Design, and while I was there, I got to do like a ton of different internships. I was part of the co-op program, and I worked at, let's see, Vans, Nike, Sean John. That's actually where I was. That's where I met Dakota for, and why I was in New York. And then as well as a few consumer electronics places. And that's kind of where I found out what I wanted to be doing, what I liked, what I didn't like, who I wanted to model myself after, who I didn't want to model myself after, and kind of where I got the kind of the base level of what I wanted to be doing with my design career, what I wanted to be doing with my life, and what I felt fulfilled by. I feel like a lot of the things I learned at the University of Cincinnati wasn't just from Cincinnati or from the school. It was kind of from the experiences all around. It was a time when design was really starting to pick up again. There's a lot of eyes on it and a lot of opportunities, and I think you guys are in a really good space to kind of move into the future. And so I'm really excited to kind of share my journey. And honestly, I'm hoping that I can provide a different perspective. When I was back in college, I really kind of hated listening to people who were coming in and speaking, and I always thought that was kind of stupid, and I never thought they were relevant to me. I felt like there was one type of way to become a successful designer, at least that's what I was being told in school. But because I didn't really want to do that, I kind of had to find my own path, and that's what led me to where I am today. So just like Dakota said, I've done a lot of the collaboration and energy shoes in the skateboarding space in the last 3 years. So yeah, most notably, I do a lot of the 420 shoes. I did the like music license collaborations, so like the Grateful Dead. I work on like the bringbacks. I work on a lot of the shoes that we do with the charities, like the Dorenbecher's Children's Hospital. But mostly, I just like to kind of have a good time with it. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just making shoes. But I think that's kind of where my head was at when I left college. Is just like I want to have fun doing something that I love, and it combines skateboarding, fashion, footwear, and just like having a good time, just doing crazy stuff. So that's been really fun. Like I said, I want to keep this more of a conversation, so I'm looking forward to any questions you guys have kind of around this space. And then kind of moving into the personal side. Back when I was in college, like I had said before, there's a lot of people were telling me there's one way to be a good designer or a successful designer. And I never felt like I fit that mold very well. I did the work, but I never really loved it. And it wasn't until I got to Vans and somebody told me, like, it doesn't matter what other people are thinking. If you're having a good time and you're enjoying it, that's usually going to lead you in the right direction. So I started drawing. I started getting tattooed a lot. I started tattooing. That really kind of pushed me into a different headspace and how I could apply my own personal ideas of what I like doing into the work. And it actually kind of created this balance, this really nice balance between the two worlds of art and design that's informed where I've gone and what I'm currently doing. So I've done artist series with Reel for a lot of professional skateboarders. I've done snowboards, doing a ton of murals, and that's kind of what's been keeping me sane over COVID, just going out to places and having a reason to get out and paint, as well as doing like a lot of art installations and putting on a bunch of different shows out in Portland myself, all kind of in the name of just like more fun things to do. That kind of like leads me into the social media aspect of it. I think that's a super important thing. The thing that was happening when I was in college, where people were starting to become notable more on Instagram, using different platforms to show who you were and get work that way. I've literally gotten all my work through kind of Instagram, through social media, through putting myself out there on different platforms. It's a reason I believe it's a reason that I got hired at Nike. I wasn't just a footwear designer. I wasn't just a designer. I was a person with a passion on the side. And I think that is super important. Anyway, without kind of going into the weeds on that too much, definitely want to hear out you guys' questions. Dakota has some questions prepared, and I would love to get into those things. So that's just a little bit background on me. And yeah, we can continue kind of moving forward.
Cool. Yeah. I think, yeah, like we wanted to sort of have this dialogue be kind of like a podcast, kind of like conversation. So I'll get the ball rolling with, some questions. Again, I think like why Bryce is such an important person, why, we want to invite him out here as, part of the, I guess, the information, he's got inside of him. So I'll open that with, kind of branching off from the kind of like social media topic. This is like got a few parts to it. So if you have any advice, what would your advice be for young artists, creators, makers on marketing themselves via social media? What has your experience been with those collaborations, with those organizations or people, from social media? Is it you reaching out to them, or is it vice versa? And then, how do you determine when you say no?
All right, those are great questions. I still am not to the point where I could say no. That was something that somebody told me pretty early on, is like, say yes to everything until you have until you can afford yourself the ability to say no. So I'm still saying yes to pretty much everything that comes down the pipe. What I've found is that every time I do that, I gain a new friend, I gain a new cool project, I make some more connections, I get some more content to post. And that's the kind of the thing with the social media stuff. I've found that consistency is key. Now it's tough when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to push yourself to do things and you're getting stale and you're getting burnt out. But that's where the like having a good time and enjoying what you're doing comes into play. I feel like you see a lot of people trying to, hey, I'm going to start a new thing, and it's not something that I exactly love. It's something that I think will do really well on social media, and that never lasts. It's super unsustainable. I think what you want to do is fold it into the things that you enjoy, whether it's art, design, or cooking, or farming chickens, right? I got like 10 chickens now. And people seem to be just as interested in that as they are in the murals that I paint or the shoes that I design. I think that's kind of part of it. Right now, everybody can do the work. Everybody has the resources to learn and become great designers. And but the thing that people want to see externally and kind of in the workforce is who you are as a person. Do we want to work with this person because their art is great? Maybe they seem, we can find somebody else who has amazing work, but like, do we want to work with these people because they look like they're having a good time? Do they look like they are going to bring a good energy to our project? Do they look like they're somebody we want to sit next to or work with for 8 hours a day? So that to me, I think is a huge part of it. Something that a recruiter told me at Nike when I first got in was they barely looked at my portfolio. They looked at my social media a lot because they knew I could do the work. They had seen people, they see people all day, every day who are footwear designers. And of course that's great. You want to find people who are very involved in the industry that you're, hiring for, but you also want to make sure that they're a good fit as a human. So that's the thing that's like been really, I think, universal. I've seen that pop up with the social media stuff. I've seen that pop up with work. I've seen that pop up kind of in every collaborative project I've worked on. It's mostly about attitude. It's mostly about, are you showing off your personality in an authentic way? And when you are, people connect with that and they see that and they reach out. And just like Dakota reached out, like, we want to have you talk because you do a ton of this stuff. And, that stuff just comes naturally to me because I love doing it. So yeah, it's all over the place. That was I can ramble.
No, that was great. And I think that like transitions great into, kind of another question of sort of prepared. It's like, I guess when applying for, a job or an internship, how do you think people should market themselves? I guess, in like, from your experience, how has that sort of turned out? Like, should we cater our work or our portfolio to fit like the office or the company? Or do you think it's better to kind of express ourselves and kind of be, ourselves, and like, hopefully we sort of match them? And I guess, it's probably a combination in there, but I guess, I don't know, what's your experience in sort of that realm?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much answered it for me. It is a bit of a combination. No, I think there's definitely there's a bit of a formula to it. When I graduated, I had 7 internships under my belt, I think, or I was about to head into my 7th internship at Nike. So I've done a lot of interviewing in my short college career. For me, it was 90% show them who I am, 10% show them that I am engaged or show them that I care. So what I would really do is I would, cater my projects to the things that I felt like really represented me as a person, but also showed that I could do the work and do it well. Then that last 10%, if I was really gunning for an internship and I was really trying to like make it a point to say like, hey, I'm going to go above and beyond for you, I would take a day or a weekend. So 1 or 2 days, sit down on my computer, put my head down and just work on like a 2-pager project. I would cater like, just show that like little bit of effort to be, to stand out. And I really, really think that was kind of a key. So people want to know, we want to hire this intern. Is it somebody who wants to learn? Is it somebody who we can get along with? We're going to bring on this intern for a summer, maybe. And as somebody who's working there, do I want to sit next to this person? Do I think they're going to be a good coworker? But then at the same time, you want to make sure you're showing like, oh, they really want to be involved. They really want to make sure they really are putting in the effort to show that, hey, I care about this company. I think that I have a specific vision that I can help push, and this is how I can kind of fit in. So yeah, it's definitely a combination. And, it's a sliding scale, how much work you have to show that can show your personality, or do you want to dive in and do a real large project for somebody that really shows that you're invested? But I think that kind of comes down to the individual. For me, it was about that, like 90-10.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's some wonderful advice. I think that segues good into another question I've got, and then we'll start to branch to the students and see what they got. So this is kind of another sort of multi-parter. So what has your experience been like with collaborating in the design industry? How have you transitioned from being the sole creator of projects in school to, projects at your job where there's a number of hands that, touch and all have influence in the design? And then, how do you find yourself being a team player then, right? And then, knowing when to kind of roll with someone else's idea, and, to kind of take a step back and sort of roll with their vision.
Yeah. Well, I don't exactly know what year students you guys are, but I'd say enjoy every single second of being in school, because you are your own creative director, and your professors are there to help you and kind of like make the best product, the best project, and that's the time when you can really kind of carve out and create the world that you want to be in. You pick your own kind of, you take the prompt and you find your own brief and you create your own work. And that it doesn't happen that often in the real world. So yeah, there was definitely a transition between being in school and working on whatever I wanted to, and balancing it with getting out of school. And that's kind of why the co-ops were helpful. While I was, I'd have a semester of doing whatever I wanted, going crazy. And I'd have a semester of an internship and learning what it was like to take direction, and learning what it was like to be thrown on a project that I didn't necessarily want to be on, but finding ways to make that my own. Yeah, the collaboration process, whether it's with a Grateful Dead or with a professional athlete, or just with collaborating with your team, it's a super good skill to learn, and it's something that I didn't exactly learn in school. School is specifically hard because people have egos. Everybody thinks there's some people who might think they're really good at design. There's some people who think they suck. You're working with a ton of different personalities, and it's similar in work, but at the same time, if you find the right team professionally, at the end of the day, most people are there to make the best product. So for me, that's been something that I've learned. If somebody's going to comment, hey, this looks a little bit crazy, but it's something that I really want to incorporate, I just got to ask them why. And if that balances out, and if it's something that I think is valid, or it's not something that I need to fight that battle on, I think at the end of the day, people aren't just trying to tear your work down because it has to come out and be commercialized. So people are tearing it down just to rebuild it in a better way, in a collaborative way. And that took me a long time to figure out. I used to just be like, screw you guys. Like, you hired me for a reason, but they got hired for a reason too. And that was the hard thing to kind of realize. Like, I'm still so green in the space that when people bring things up to me, I know that it's just because they want to make sure that this thing lives, and doesn't get dropped out of the line, which happens a lot with footwear. If somebody comes along and they're like, that thing is not hitting the mark, and we're just gonna nix it. So at the end of the day, people are really just trying to make sure these things see the light of day, and by doing that, you get the best shoe at the end of the day. So I think that's so true of just like most projects. There are exceptions, but I don't think there's a lot of people who are just there just to tear you down, just to do it. But yeah, it's definitely a learned skill. But yeah, again, to jump back, enjoy your time in school, because you never get to like not really listen to people again if you don't want to.
Cool. Right on. Okay, so I see Chelsea raising her hand. Is that you asking a question, Chelsea?
Yes, it is.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right. My question is how did you get started in this like footwear design field? I know you say you graduated, like you went to school and everything and you got your degree like in the design field, but like how did you, other than like internships and stuff like that, how did you get into shoe design? Is that something that you went to school for? Like, did you go to school to design footwear, or did you go to school for something else and then eventually got like somehow ended up in a position to design footwear?
That's a great question. So I went to school for industrial design or product design, but that was mostly focused on consumer electronics, furniture, basically that's what they taught in school. And I didn't go to school that long ago. I graduated in 2017. And yeah, it's I really had to carve it out myself, especially for footwear. There was a small like group of kids who were very interested in it, so we kind of had our own curriculum that we kind of pushed ourselves to do. But I think the big thing was, so I got into it originally just kind of by happenstance. I had a friend who was working at Vans, and they got me involved there. They like sent over my portfolio, and I got in. After I did that initial internship, I probably could have done more, and I just had something under my belt. And I actually, after that, I did some consumer electronics and did some fashion stuff, and I realized footwear was kind of where I wanted to be. So for the second half of college, I really focused in on doing that. But I think for everybody, it's just doing the work. And right now there's a ton of resources. I wish there was as many resources around footwear design or kind of like the action sports design. I wish I had that when I was back in school. So, you know, I see a ton of people just doing projects on, like there's a ton of designers actually that have just gotten hired because they are like fantastic renderers. And there are a lot of people who are picked up because of their posts on Instagram and all that. So I think part of it is just, yeah, doing the work and then marketing it out and asking the questions. I have kids reaching out to me all the time, kids and adults. I mean, I have people who are trying to get into the industry and they're like 40 years old. But people hit me up on LinkedIn all the time, and I try and set aside at least 20 to 30 minutes to talk to the people who I feel like are really gunning to be in the industry, and I try and make sure I can guide them. So yeah, I'd say like hit me up after this if you're interested. I would love to kind of like chat on an individual basis, but also like do the research out there. And there's a ton of people who can help you, like go on to Clubhouse and listen to people talk about footwear. There's a huge community for it, and through those things, like I feel like the networking aspect is, the world's become super small. All of a sudden, when you're reaching out to people on Instagram, when you're hitting people up on LinkedIn, all of a sudden these connections just start being made. And for me, that's how I got in, was being part of like a network of footwear designers, and kind of hitting people up and being like, hey, what's up with are there any jobs here? Can you give me any advice? And that went a super far, that went super a long way to getting into where I am. Basically, I can get into the story. I don't know if you guys want me to, but how I got my current job was I was an intern with my best friend now, or he wasn't my best friend then, but he was a designer at Vans, and I met him when I was 19, and 4 or 5 years later, he was able to get me a job at Nike. So that's kind of how it works.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Chelsea. Man, I was trying to avoid it, but Jake at LA Tech or Nathaniel Irving, if you want to ask your question, you can pop on. You posted it, but I just want to open the dialogue there. Okay, well, I'll ask it for them, I guess. Says, from Nathaniel Irving, how has your approach to work, both Nike and freelance, changed before COVID and now?
I take a lot more time for myself. I think the pandemic has changed, I think, perspectives all around. I don't think I know one person who hasn't altered their perception, their perspective, at least a little bit. For me, it definitely did. I used to not sleep. I used to not eat. I used to just sit there and design shoes and then go straight into my side work and go, really was just hustling to try and do anything and everything, which I think is still an amazing thing to do, and just trying to be diverse and like branch out and do a lot of things. But my approach has been altered because I think everybody has a new lease on what's important. And I've taken a lot more time to go outside. I've taken a lot more time to go out and skate, surf, work on projects that are, just, building a shelf for my house. I think gives me a little bit of that brain space to then come back and attack other projects with a little bit more. I also, started cooking. I started eating. I used to skip meals because I was just so like in the weeds on my projects. And I think it's actually been way better. It's led to better decision making because I'm not spinning my wheels 24/7. I can edit things a lot quicker. I can say yes or no to projects a lot easier because I see my bandwidth instead of just like draining away full days. I can say, hey, no, I actually can't do this because I want to take this weekend and go look for mushrooms out in the forest, or like take my dog out and go camping, stuff like that. So yeah, I take a lot more time for myself. And I mean, I was in school once. I'm not actually, I only ever pulled one all-nighter, so I'm actually kind of proud of that. But I know how it goes. I know how it is when everything is spent doing kind of that one thing, and work takes up so much of your time, and you think that that's the one thing that you need to be striving for. But in reality, like you guys all have lives to live, so enjoy that. And that's another thing. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna keep pressing it in, like enjoy your time in school. You don't have shit to do. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good segue into like what's the day-to-day of a footwear designer. What's your day look like? I mean, maybe it's more, I don't know, more specifically before COVID, like when you're in the office, like what's that sort of interaction like? And I guess, what is that post-COVID now, of course. So
yeah, man, I wish I could be a good role model in that aspect. I would roll into work and just like shoot the shit with people, catch up. My favorite, I get energy from just like chilling with people and hanging out and picking their brains. So yeah. I mean, I would roll into work, hang out, grab coffee, settle in at my desk, watch some Thrasher videos, scroll on Hypebeast, really just kind of chill and take it easy. And then I would, there was a certain time when I was like, all right, let's dig in. And I just started digging in on my work. And that's like for a couple hours, jump to a meeting. That's the thing. So the way that I break up my work at Nike, there's like meetings, and then there's like time to get stuff done. So we have a ton of meetings and not as much time to get stuff done as you'd like. And that's where I used to like drain away my day. I'd come home from work and I'd work more. But I don't do that anymore. So yeah, it's a corporation. So there's a lot of people that have to check boxes and say yes or no, or move forward, order samples, like go back to the drawing board. So that was a lot of my day, was designing, presenting, getting feedback, adjusting, and we do that all day, every day. But I definitely there'd be times where I'd just be like laying on a couch on Hypebeast, like I'm doing research for work. And yeah, man, I wish that I miss that. I miss the aspect of hanging out. I mean, those are the things you used to see people and hang out for 8 hours a day. And now you just don't, you like schedule calls to check in on a project. But yeah, so the way my work has changed during COVID is that I take those same meetings, but I'm over Zoom. I'm usually trying to get work done while the meetings are happening. I'm sure you guys are doing some work right now or something. And then I just go out and I play with my dog, and then I go and I feed the chickens, and I'm over here painting and drawing a ton. We got like a stained glass area. I got a mini ramp out back, and like a gym and that kind of stuff. So the nice thing about working from home during the pandemic is that my life isn't blocked into the office. I can do 2 hours of work, in the office. Then I can go work out about 10 steps away. I can come back and feel refreshed. And that's, I think, kind of what led me into just balancing my life a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess, there's like so many pros coming out of it, but definitely cons, right? Like missing out, like, you mentioned about scrolling through Hypebeast, and like that is research though. It's like, it's what you do, and like that is the market you're in, and also like missing the cross-pollination with your coworkers and friends essentially, right? And so there's, unfortunately we kind of miss that. And we miss that here obviously in school, and like even me as a teacher, like I'm in my office right now, but like we're missing that, sketching in front of them and kind of the in-person analog thing. So there's I don't know, we'll hopefully the world grows and becomes better from it, but we're here to listen to Bryce talk, not me. So we've got another hand raised. That's one of the Carwells. I don't know if that's or Stephanie.
No, this is Guy.
Hello, Guy. Go ahead.
Hey.
The floor is yours.
All right. Bryce, thanks for coming to chat with us. How many products do you design in a year?
That's a great question. That's a tough question. It's hard to ballpark an answer. I can tell you I probably work on about 5 or 6 shoes per season. And we have overlapping seasons. Like right now I'm working on summer 2023. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it kind of like, it doesn't, my work doesn't stop within a year. They're always kind of overlapping, and I'm currently finishing up projects that will be coming out this holiday. And then as far as 2023, so tons of projects. It's
so approximately like 4 per season, and you have 4 seasons, I assume, or more than that. I don't
4 seasons plus a timeline that we call a quick strike timeline, which is all the collaborations. So yeah, and it kind of ranges. I think for 2 years ago, I got like doubled the amount of projects because of the Olympics. So it's like always changing, and the way that like skateboarding is going, we're doing more and more and more. So my best answer is I do a ton of projects. But the beauty of it is that I love what I do, so it's a lot of fun and not just work.
And of those projects, how many go to market as a percentage?
I'd say I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate in that about 80% probably goes to market. When you get into the bigger categories like running, and you get into more heavily scrutinized product, man, I've had friends who have told me that they've worked on, or they haven't had any shoes come out in the last 2 years that they've worked, and they have about the same workload as me. So, that's a lot of shoes to not come out. But I've gotten very lucky because my category is super small, and they kind of trust us, and there's not as many people to have to say yes in the chain of command.
And then one last thing, once it hits market, what's the average duration that the shoe may be on the market?
It really is. It depends on the sell-through. I have projects that sell out in 10 seconds, which is really cool to see. And I don't know if anybody's a sneakerhead here, but I've definitely been on the apps when I'm like trying to get my own shoe, and I'm like, well, they're gone, and I didn't get one. So that's pretty cool. But then on the other hand, there's some projects that we call carryovers that I work on that will literally exist for the duration of the time that the shoe exists in the market. So it really ranges, but the most standard answer is like, hopefully they sell out in about a month for the season,
Well, thank you so much. And again, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Awesome. Great questions, Guy. I've got a couple, I guess it's one question that was sent to me in the DMs. It says, how does a footwear designer rationalize beauty? Using materials that are not exactly functional, colors that are off the wall, materials that are less durable than others. And what do you think an architectural designer could learn from that? Can you rationalize just having fun for the sake of having fun?
All right. Yeah. How do we rationalize? I think there's going to be differences. I think in coming out with a shoe versus something architectural. But I think there are crossovers that can apply to both. The difference is I make shoes that are the size of a shoe, a loaf of bread. It's like that thing can be tossed, it can be given away, it can be resold, but if it doesn't kind of meet your style or match what you are going for that day or that year. So we have a little bit of freedom to say, hey, let's do a super insane one just to do it. And if there's only a certain amount of people who buy it, like at least we put forward that expression to match those people's needs. When I think architecturally, I think a little bit more permanence. I think things that are a lot larger than a shoe and cost more money to make. At least for one product. I do think that there is a space where you can rationalize designing something architecturally that is really mostly expression based. And I think where that comes into play, and I think this is actually a big topic that we haven't even talked about yet, is the narrative and the storytelling behind it. 100% of my shoes, 100% of the collaborations we do are really based on narrative, based on what story can we tell and why are we using these materials? Why are we designing it this way? Why does it look like that? Narrative is as important as functionality in many cases, at least for me. I'm not designing shoes that help you break marathon records. And yet there was a lot of design aesthetics that went into those shoes. But I work on shoes that are like furry and like orange. That's not for everybody, but the stories that they tell, I think, are the things that make that help justify. So if you have a really good reason to make something architecturally that is purely based on expression, it's hard to say no to that. Just the same as it would be hard to say, hey, I want to design a building that is super sustainable, or I want to design a building that does X, Y, Z. Those are all just stories. Those are all just narratives. Whether they're true or not, I don't know. But I think those things really help justify getting into those expressive projects. And I think they're 100% valid.
Cool. Yeah, great answer. That was a little bit of a tough question, but beautiful answer, man. That was great. Okay, we've got a couple hands raised, so let's go to Kegel. Is that Wesley?
Yeah, that's me. Hey, man. I'm rolling a little bit late to the party, so I don't know if y'all talked a little bit about NFTs, but I kind of wanted to pick your brain on that subject. So my question is, do you think there will be a Mona Lisa to the NFT space? And if so, what do you think will set the value to the digital asset?
Do I think there's going to be? I think there might already be a Mona Lisa.
You think it's like one of the OGs, like first up on the space?
It's a Doberman dollar, right?
Yeah, it's for sale. No, I think here's the thing. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things. Just the way that like finding a cave painting, like one of the earliest cave paintings, can really have some value to it because it's like the first. I think a lot of like the Beeples stuff is going to hold value. I think a lot of the stuff that is coming after it with a lot of no-name artists and I think those things are not going to hold as much value in the long run. But I think as artists who are currently big artists come in, there will be a lot more. But to me, I think there's going to be some value in some of these early OG cyberpunk things. Just because it's like the start of a new era. in general, I think NFTs are a hilarious thing. As an artist, I kind of love it because it's really giving the power back to people. But I also think that it's just we're just scratching the surface. So get in while you can, while it's the Wild West. If you guys, I mean, I know you guys are all creative minds, so yeah, throw it out there and try and make the next Mona Lisa. But yeah, I'm really interested in seeing where it takes it. I'm not like super well versed in the NFT space. It's something that I've looked into. I've tried my hand and I've done okay, but I'm really excited to see where it goes. And almost, I mean, I'm like bigger into just like straight up crypto, and you know, we're seeing some really crazy things there. So tying it to art's pretty fun.
I agree. All right, thanks, man.
Cool question. We've got another question in the chat. Sydney Keller, if you'd like to ask away.
Sure. So my question is, do you find when you're doing a lot of these collaborations that you tend to default to a certain process when you're creating these designs? And how do you see do you see certain variations in these collaborations as well? For when you said you do a lot of 420 shoes, how does the process for those versus your collaboration with the Grateful Dead?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think, just like I think everybody on the listening side of this thing, I'm sure you guys each have your own process, your own specific way of working, and there's no difference between like working with one of you guys and a Grateful Dead type collaborator. I think everybody has their own kind of vision, and we want to cater to their needs first and foremost. So there's a lot of different types of collaborators. So there's some that come in and they say, hey, we're a footwear brand already, or not a footwear brand, we're like a skate brand already, and we know skate footwear, and we already have 5 ideas. We'd love to see which ones you guys think are great. There's people like the Grateful Dead who came in, they're like, we don't know what we would do. We have all these assets, we have a lot of things that we're doing and momentum, but we have no idea how we would make this a new issue. So that's kind of where the creative team kind of gets to run wild and have a little bit of freedom. So a lot of times that'll be, hey, here's our graphic assets, here's the things, and then we circle back, and as a design team, we come up with 5, 10, 20 options, and we say, here's some crazy things we want to throw at you, and take a look, and which ones kind of do you see are the best, and do you want to know which ones you think we would be most successful with. So specifically with the Grateful Dead ones, we had a plan in place where we knew that they didn't know what they wanted coming in. So we had referenced these old retro SB dunks that came out in the early 2000s that were they're called the 3 Bears pack. And that was kind of what we pitched them. During our first meeting, they're like, we don't know what we want to do. We're like, well, we have this thing already set for you, and we're going to do a few more options, but we think this one will be super strong. So that's kind of how those things came to life. As far as like the kind of like the more inline, non-collaboration, non-external collaboration shoes, like the 420 shoes, basically we sit there and we say, well, I as a Nike employee, I don't know what the 420 thing actually means. I do, but I can't say I do. So what we do, we're like, hey, we got this cool idea, and we have this team who traditionally works on this April launch shoe, and we got this idea for this strain, or this, it's hard to talk about through this one, but yeah, those are the fun ones, because we really just get to say, hey, like, who has a great idea? Usually somebody comes out of the blue and they're like, this is the one. I got this like sick idea, and this is how we're going to execute it. Or we bring in an external like artist who is in the skate industry, who we know enjoys 420, and comes up with an idea. So those ones are super niche and super fun, because that definitely takes a specific team to come in and be like, this is authentic to skateboarding, and this is kind of part of the culture, and this is how we're going to execute on it. And then we just get sketching. I personally don't even sketch at all. I never sketch. I do photo collages, which, we can talk about that if you guys want to. But yeah, I think it varies with each collaboration process.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question. Great answer. I'm going to spread the wealth and try to get everybody a question. So let's have Hunter, if you see you raising your hand.
Yeah, so I just as somebody I'm a senior this year in architecture, but like throughout my course of like architecture school, I've kind of grown more towards like love for graphic design, graphic art, streetwear culture, shoes and stuff like that. How do you think somebody who originally got a degree in architecture could kind of mold themselves to start to work in more of an industry like shoes?
Well, I think you probably are on a great start in general. Everybody in here has probably a pretty good base. Like I said, I didn't really have curriculum that was around soft goods or footwear when I was in college. And it's something that I just had to like dive into and do research on my own. But the thing that was super helpful was that I had a background in design. So design principles in any kind of any case can be applied, and using the same verbiage, the same jargon, like that stuff will never not apply to design. I mean, you're talking composition, you're talking like structural things. There's a lot of engineering that goes into footwear, and I think that's probably pretty applicable to a lot of different things that you guys have learned. If you're already kind of in the space and you have an understanding of the space, my kind of my advice would just be to go for it and make some projects that are meaningful to you. And at this point, I mean, you're going to have an architecture degree, like this year, next year. But I mean, who looks at degrees anymore? Really, it's about the projects that you do. I actually have a ton of friends, like I said, who got picked up off of social media because they're really good at Photoshop, and they didn't even go to school for it. The downside is when they got to Nike, it took them a long ass time to learn how to, fit in with the other designers because of the skill set. But it's entirely possible. There's a lot of OG architecture. I guess they're not architects, but they're designers who studied architecture. That they bring a lot of different perspective. I actually think like leaning in on your architectural background will definitely help bring a new perspective to what footwear could be, what graphics could be, and how those things all kind of intertwine.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Hunter. I see Brian Helms raising his hand.
Hey, thanks, Dakota, for setting this all up. I'm not a student anymore, so thank you for letting me fit in a question here.
This is the Brian that showed me the Bryce Wong Instagram account.
Oh, sick. Nice.
Few years ago, yeah. Bryce, nice to meet you. Sort of a longer question here, but with sneakers and graphic design, I guess as a more palatable form of fashion for a lot of illustrators, where do you see yourself along the lines of fashion and illustration? Are the sneakers more of a vehicle for your designs, or do you see yourself evolving more from illustration into fashion design and picking up some of those skills? I guess as a younger illustrator, I've realized that I'm constantly thinking of ways to make my illustrations more marketable, and thinking of applying my design skills to different industries, but I often feel underqualified when I'm applying for jobs in fashion. So a little bit nervous, I guess. So were you intimidated when you first started at Nike, working along a lot of trained fashion designers and people that are sort of pros at rendering? And do you think that larger companies are doing a little bit better at seeking out designers from more diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, long question.
Yes, sorry. I can repeat any of it if you need.
Yeah, well, let me get into the first part of it. I don't think I'm too deep in the fashion world. Although it may seem like I am, I don't feel like I am. I think I definitely feel that Nike's a good kind of the sweet spot for me, where it is very commercial, and yet we can also push the envelope in terms of like build and actual product. So I learn I go in with the attitude that like, hey, I'm going to contribute in the things that I am very specifically good at contributing in. And one day I'll be able to contribute in a way that you might be able to, because I'm going to learn from you. So I sit with, I would say, the most talented people in the world when it comes to sports, lifestyle, footwear, and apparel. And I definitely, I go in and I try not to have any ego around it, or try and make sure that I'm like, that I'm aware that, hey, I want to contribute, but I'm going to be the one learning here. So that's kind of the thing. And I think people, pick up on that. You ask the right questions. If you ask questions, people aren't going to think of you as like somebody who knows everything. And, it's like, you got to set the stage and set expectations a little bit. But I think if you find yourself in that position, they hired you for a reason. Or if you find yourself talking to whoever you're applying to, they're talking to you for a reason. So don't discount that, but also make sure that you, like, if you do feel like a little bit too far over your skis, that you voice that, and you're transparent about that, because I think everybody wants to work with somebody who is willing to learn but can also bring something to the table. You're gonna have to help me out with other parts of the question.
Yeah, no, that covered most of it. I mean, yeah, no, that you covered it all there. My question was probably just as long as your answer was, but and then I just had a quick bonus question as well. Do you have a favorite sneaker design that you designed, at least on paper, that wasn't approved?
Oh, that wasn't approved.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm able to tell you guys.
Secrets.
No, I think, let me see.
Or I guess if there's anything that's too out there that didn't really make it past the meetings.
Well, I usually try and do like one crazy concept, but the thing is, like, where I sit, a lot of those crazy concepts have come out. So maybe I can reframe the question to, what's my favorite design that I've gotten in trouble for?
Sure.
I think the one that got me in trouble was the Oski shark dunk, where I just didn't put a swoosh on the shoe at all, and I just put a shark that was in the shape of the swoosh. I actually had to be in a meeting this morning with like a bunch of designers on like how we treat our trademark. And I thought that was pretty funny, because people weren't mad at me. They're all like, are you why we're in here? And I was like, I'm part of the reason, I'm sure, but we also like, so because that one I just went straight through, and I was like not many people had to check it off because it was an athlete shoe. So I was like, boom, let's send this thing to market. And it came back, and people started internally and on our team, like, they're like, that's sick. But then right when the higher up started seeing it, they started tripping out a bit. So that's probably my favorite one that we like got away with, just like really messing with the brand, which, it wasn't really my intention, but that's kind of the way it came out.
Sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Good question. Good to see you, Brian. Okay, we've got another question from Cole Shivers in the chat, if you want to ask. And I don't know how much longer you want to stick around, Bryce, but we'll be as long as you want to be. Yeah,
I got a little time. Plus, I'm happy to. This is like way more fun than the meetings I've been in today. So.
All right. Yeah, we'll see how this goes in the next few minutes. But Cole, are you there? You want to ask the question?
Oh, we can unmute now. Yeah, that's all right. So, Bryce, you've been in the business for a while. So I was actually kind of curious. Are there any prominent, like, revolutionary or striking sneaker designs that either inspired you to take on the job or kind of informed the work that you do as a designer?
Totally. I think a lot of I'm going to take a left turn here and say, like, my favorite shoe that has inspired me to become a designer, I think, are Crocs. Most specifically because they're this combination of like the ugliest things in the world, but also this thing that's now circled back. And ultimately, like my favorite thing about them is that they have those gibbets to like put in whatever the heck you want. And to me,
So ugly they're iconic.
what?
So ugly they're iconic.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when I was a kid growing up, I grew up in Orange County, California, and there's a lot of weird things where if you didn't wear kind of what the other kids were wearing, the more like affluent kids were wearing, then like you weren't cool or you weren't accepted. And I feel like for me, I never wore Crocs as a kid. I wear them all the time now. But the thing that I love about them is that like it takes a certain person to like really say like I don't care, I'm gonna wear Crocs. And then the fact that you can make them, you can express yourselves through these gibbet charms is like the best thing in the world to me. Because like I said, when I was growing up, you had to wear kind of what everyone else was wearing. So there's really like this conformity that took me a long time to get out of. And that's kind of why I do these crazy shoes now, because my intention into it is to help people kind of express themselves the way that they want to, and provide a platform and provide different options instead of making the same shoe every single time. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can honestly go on about, I could do a whole talk. We'll do a separate talk about Crocs. But yeah, the other ones that have been really, you know, while in my time at Nike have really inspired me are like the Fly Ease stuff. My uncle, my mother's brother is differently abled. So he has never been able to put shoes on himself. And some of these shoes with the Fly Ease technology, if you will, but it's like it's really just like a easy way of like a closure system. That stuff has been really inspiring to me personally because of the inclusivity. And I think the same thing with expression, like it's catering to people who are different or want to be different, be inclusive, and that those are the types of things that like to me are the reasons I stay at Nike. You know, there's a lot of things that I don't love about being in a big corporation that makes a lot of money, but there's a lot of things that I think we do at Nike that allows to push things forward and allows for people to feel included in a space that is kind of known for not being inclusive. So that's like, those are one of my favorite shoes. Like the step in, like no hands, Fly Ease stuff is pretty inspiring to me.
Share my screen quick. That's what these are, in case you don't know. These kind of like fold open, stick your foot in there. So
Oh, that's wild.
Put the shoe to name. So
I have never seen that design for a shoe before.
Yeah, it's been in the works for like 15 years apparently. So, you know, I didn't design them, but I'm super proud that somebody pitched that, made it happen. Because I don't think it probably wasn't an easy pitch to be like, hey, we want to make this like hands-free shoe for differently abled people, even though it's a niche market where we can't make as much money.
Yeah, it's not proud because it's your design. It's proud because your company came up with it.
Yeah, exactly. That we would do it, even though it might not make us as much money as designing more Air Force Ones. So definitely inspired by that.
cool.
Yeah, you can make up profit margins with the rest of your product line.
Exactly.
Wonderful. I see Chelsea has her hand raised on Zoom yet again. Do you want to ask another question?
Yes, I do. So my question is like, how do I know you said your portfolio wasn't necessarily the thing that got you in the door. It was networking, but if I wanted to kind of like produce a portfolio or start posting designs, how do I do that? And then also, like, what software do you guys use to design shoes online, like digitally?
Okay, so we could attack that portfolio one. If you want to start sharing it on, I mean, there's so many platforms now that you could do it. That I used to put my work on Behance. I primarily used Instagram. I felt like that was like the booming social media at the time, and it still has pretty heavy weight in terms of who sees that stuff. And then like finding the people you want to send it to specifically and sending it to them, hitting them up, being like, hey, I really respect your work and I would love to chat. And I'm not asking for a job. I just want to see where I can do better, or if you see if you like my work. That stuff follows the networking, right? You can't just network and be like, hey, I know you, give me a job. It's like, hey, like, I know you, we've had great conversations, and I'm like really interested in what you do. I want to hear more about you. And then I hope like you could take an interest in my work. That's I guess a big secret is like, not a big secret, but kind of a secret is that people want to talk about their journey and how you relate to their journey. And do you fit into my story? And that's, I'm talking about myself for the past hour, hour and a half. And that's the kind of thing you can get if you get people talking and get people invested in working with you. That's that networking, and then it's followed by your portfolio. It's followed by your work. Can I do the things I say I can do? Can I do the things that you need me to do? So that's what I would say about your portfolio. It's you just start putting it out there. There's it's a pretty easy way to kind of just get your name out there, get your work out there. The internet's super powerful. As far as programs go, I do 85% of my work in Adobe. So InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop. I use Rhino. I do mostly I'm just in Rhino, like panning around models that come back to me from factories or from 3D designers. But I do most of my work in Illustrator and Photoshop, and that includes rendering, doing line work, as well as, like I was saying, I do mostly photo collages just to get my point across. And that's usually how I work.
Cool. Wonderful question, Chelsea.
Thanks.
You got time for a couple more?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask a hard one again. Okay, so this is a multi-parter. Answers can kind of be short here. So what's your favorite part about your job? What's the least favorite part? And then, what's the most like unexpected part of your job as well? And then, how do you find fulfillment in what you do, at least in like let's say your sort of shoe designing career?
My favorite part of the job, definitely the people. Like I said, I actually sit next to my best friend at work. And it's like the coolest thing ever, because he's also super talented. I feel like that's the same studio environment that you guys haven't been able to have in the last year, which is super unfortunate. But that studio environment that you have in school is very similar to being like at Nike. We have that, which to me, I'm like, I don't think I could work in a place that didn't have that. That's where I learned a lot of my skills. That's where I improve upon my design thinking. That's how I just get inspired. So that's my favorite part. And that's also the part that I'm like really missing. I used to just go hang out in like the maker's studio whenever I could. Even if I was just making something personal or I was making mock-ups for shoes, it was always people coming around like, yo, whoa, that's cool. What is that? Like, what are you working on? Or me asking people what they're working on and just being like, oh, like add that to the, to the mental visual library of like, that's something really cool. How can I apply that later? And right now I'm just like on Instagram or Reddit, and that's cool in itself, but it's not seeing a very talented designer 2 feet away that I could have a conversation with. And then my least favorite part of the job, the politics. and that's just the realities of the workforce. There's always going to be somebody who's vying for a project, who's a yes person, and when they really shouldn't be a yes person. And that's just, I mean, honestly, I kind of gamify it. Like I turn it into a little bit of like a challenge, but it's definitely my least favorite, because sometimes like good design can't just speak for itself. You have to like play a little bit of a game. And but that in itself is a skill, and it's not something that's going to go away. So it's something that you just got to get used to. Sorry, Dakota, what's the
most unexpected part of the job?
The most unexpected part of the job? Man, maybe I'm just jaded from working at Nike, but what is the most unexpected part of the job? I think also it's it's same within the realm of people, but there's like, you guys right now are surrounded by design students or art students, and there's a lot of it's a lot of the same stuff. But the surprising thing is like I get a really big kick out of talking to the engineers and talking to the marketing people, and just like learning the languages and kind of like how they operate. But also like it's funny because some of my other like really good friends at work are like parents of like 5 kids, and I'm like so far removed from that, but I kind of like love hearing about it, and like I love being part of those conversations. It like opens you up to just a ton of different people. Like, I mean, I remember in college being like, I haven't seen a baby in like months. Like, I haven't seen an old person in forever. And I work with like older people. I work with parents. I work with, all kinds of different people. And like, that's the most surprising thing, is I'm just like, oh, I got these friends now that like are about to retire or something, crazy, weird things like that. It's not really part of the job. That's just like hanging out with people.
Okay. All right. Jake Dugard's got a question, and then we'll have one kind of ending question and wrap this thing up.
Sick.
Okay. Okay. What's up, Bryce? I just followed you on Instagram. It's Kendrick.
Thank you.
All right. So with the attention to the resale market of like Nike shoes and big name brand shoes, where do you see the future for someone who wants to create their own line of shoes?
Ooh. You got a rough road ahead of you, but if you can do it, it's going to be sick. Yeah, right now Footwear is almost considered an asset, which I think there's good things and bad things to it. When you consider things assets, there's a lot more eyes on them, a lot of money to be made, a lot of like grails to be had. But I think what I would say is have a perspective. You're not going to be able to make a successful footwear line if you're drafting off of another big name. If you make Nike type shoes, Nike's always going to win. If you make Vans type shoes, Vans is probably going to win. Like, they're already established because of the persona that they have. So yeah, I'd say try and crystallize what your perspective is and why you're creating these shoes, and that'll take you far in the industry, because fresh perspective is always super welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Great question. That was fun. All right. Got one more. We're gonna end on a fun, inspiring note here. Okay, Bryce. Do you have any advice on how to answer the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, honestly. I'm probably not much older than a lot of people in here. If not, or maybe I'm younger. I think that's a moving target, honestly. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think you should just ask yourself what you enjoy doing the most. I've gone through like tons of different things where it's like, do I want to become a famous illustrator artist? And like what's driving me? Is it because I want to like be notable, or is it because I really love doing the work? Do I want to just like live off the land and be a homesteader and really like do only physical labor? Like maybe, I don't know, that sounds kind of fun. But I think it's a good question. And I also think, you know, in the same way when people ask me like, where do you want to be in 10 years? I often couldn't give you an answer on specifically what I wanted to be or what I want, like where I see myself, but I can tell you that how I answer that question usually is what I want to be doing. Do I want to be affecting culture? Do I want to be giving back? Do I want to be just enjoying my life? And I think those are the things that are like a little bit more finite, because things change and you might, you know, want to be an architect. You might want to be a graphic designer, but I think it's like what you got to boil that down, what the actual like essence of that is. Like, why do you want to be a graphic designer? Because you enjoy drawing and because you enjoy like putting like graphics on t-shirts and seeing people wear it and like you get a kick out of that, or do you enjoy designing buildings? Do you want to give back and design a skate park? You know, I think we were talking about that earlier. And it's like the reason why I do footwear is because I love helping the younger generations or just, you know, anybody who's a footwear consumer express themselves through what they're wearing, as well as picking up skills like skateboarding and giving them the best product to learn those things and allow them to have fun. So it's a tough question, but I'd say like my advice is just really focusing on what you want to be doing from like a holistic standpoint, not like a specific job question.
Awesome. Obviously couldn't have said it better than myself. Ladies and gentlemen, in the flesh via Zoom, Bryce Wong. Man, I want to say thank you so much for giving us your time.